ओम अज्ञानं तिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितमेन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वरूपं कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरुश्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुवैष्णवं च श्रीरूपं सागरजातं सहगं रघुनाथवितन्तं सजीवं साधवेतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपदां सहगं ललिता श्रीविशाखवितं च। नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचरणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पार्षदेशतारिणे हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपेकांत राधा कांत नमस्ते तप्त कंचन गौरांगी श्री राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वंचाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च च कृपा सिंधु बचा पतितनां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवसदि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। जगद्गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। We are continuing with the chapter first of the book Bhakti, the Eternal Love, the Art of Eternal Love. What is the nectar of devotion? The nectar of devotion is a summary study of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which was written in Sanskrit by Srila Goswami Prabhupada. He was the chief of the six Goswamis who were the direct disciples of the Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When he first met Lord Chaitanya, Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada was engaged as a minister in the Muslim government of Bengal, India. He and his brother Sanatan were then named Dabir Khas and Sakar Malik respectively, and they held responsible posts as minister of Nawab Hussain Shah. At that time, 500 years ago, the Hindu society was very rigid, and if a member of the Brahmana caste accepted a position of service under a Muslim ruler, he was at once ejected from Brahmana society. That was the position of two brothers, Dabir Khas and Shakar Malik. They belonged to the highly situated Saraswati Brahman community, but they were ostracized due to their acceptance of ministerial posts in the government of Hussain Shah. It is the grace of Lord Chaitanya that he accepted those two exalted personalities as his disciples and raised them to the position of Goswami, the highest position of Brahmanical culture. Similarly, Lord Chaitanya accepted Haridas Thakur as his disciple, although Haridas happened to be born of a Muslim family, and Lord Chaitanya later on made him the Acharya of the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Lord Chaitanya's principle is universal. Anyone who knows the science of Krishna consciousness and is engaged in the service of the Lord is accepted as being in higher position than a person born in the family of Brahmana. That is the ordinal principle accepted by all Vedic literature, especially by the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. The principle of the Lord Chaitanya's movement in educating and elevating everyone to the exalted post of a Goswami is taught in the nectar of devotion. Lord Chaitanya met the two brothers Dabir Khas and Shakar Malik in a village known as Ramakeli in the district of Maldaha, and after that meeting the brothers decided to retire from government service and join Lord Chaitanya. Dabir Khas, who was later to become Rupa Goswami, retired from his post and collected all the money he had accumulated during his service. It is described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that his accumulated savings in gold coins equaled millions of dollars and filling a large boat. He divided the money in a very exemplary manner, which should be followed by devotees in particular and by humanity in general. 50% of his accumulated wealth was distributed to the Krishna conscious persons, namely the Brahmanas and the Vaishnavas. 25% was distributed to relatives, and 25% was kept against emergency expenditure and personal difficulties. Later on, when Shakar Malik also proposed to retire, the Nawab was very much agitated and put him into jail. But Shakar Malik, who was later to become a Srila Sanatan Goswami, took advantage of his brother's personal money, which had been deposited with the village banker, and escaped from the prison of Hussain Shah. In this way, both brothers joined Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Rupa Goswami later met Lord Chaitanya at Prague, Allahabad, India, and on the Daswamedha bathing ghat of that holy city, the Lord instructed him continually for 10 days. The Lord particularly instructed Rupa Goswami on the science of Krishna consciousness. These teachings of Lord Chaitanya to Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada are narrated in our book, Teachings of Lord Chaitanya. Later, the Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada elaborated the teachings of the Lord with a profound knowledge of revealed scriptures and authoritative references from various Vedic literatures. Srila Srinivas Acharya described in his prayers to the six Goswamis that they were all highly learned scholars, not only in Sanskrit but also in foreign languages such as Persian and Arabic. They were very scrutinizingly studied all the Vedic scriptures in order to establish the movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu on the authorized principle of Vedic knowledge. The present Krishna conscious movement is also based on the authority of Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada. We are therefore generally known as Rupanugas, or the follower in the footsteps of Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada. It is only for our guidance that Srila Rupa Goswami prepared his book Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which is now presented in the form of the Nectar of Devotion. What is Bhakti? Bhakti means a devotional service. Every service has some attractive feature that drives the servitor progressively on and on. Every one of us within the world is perpetually engaged in some sort of service, and the input of such service is the pleasure we derive from it. Driven by affection for his wife and children, a family man works day and night. A philanthropist works in the same way for love of greater family, and a nationalist for the cause of his country and the countrymen. That force which drives the philanthropist, the householder, and the nationalist is called rasa, or a kind of mellow relationship whose taste is very sweet. Bhakti rasa is a mellow different from the ordinary rasa enjoyed by mundane workers. Mundane workers labor very hard day and night in order to relish a certain kind of rasa that is understood as sense gratification. The relish or a taste of the mundane rasa does not long endure, and therefore mundane workers are always apt to change their position of enjoyment. A businessman is not satisfied by the working whole week. Therefore, wanting a change for the weekend, he goes to a planet where he tries to forget his business activity. Then, after the weekend is spent in forgetfulness, he again changes his position and resumes his actual business activities. Material engagement means accepting a particular status for some time and then changing it. This position of changing back and forth is technically known as bhoga tyaga, which means a position of altering sense, enjoyment, and renunciation. A living entity cannot steadily remain either in sense enjoyment or in renunciation. Change is going on perpetually, and we cannot be happy in either state because of our eternal constitutional position. Sense gratification does not endure for long, and it is therefore called chapala sukha, or a flickering happiness. For example, an ordinary man who works very hard day and night and is successful in giving comfort to the member of his family thereby relishes a kind of mellow, but his whole advancement of material happiness immediately terminates along with his body as soon as his life is over. Death is therefore taken as a representative of the God for the artistic class of men. The devotee realizes the presence of God by devotional service, whereas the atheist realizes the presence of God in the shape of death. At death, everything is finished, and one has to begin a new chapter of life in a new situation, perhaps higher or lower than the last one in any of the field of activity, political, social, national, international. The result of our action will be finished with the end of life. That is be sure. Bhakti rasa, however, the mellow relished in the transcendental loving service of the Lord does not finish with the end of life. It continues perpetually and is therefore called Amrita, that which does not die but exists eternally. That is confirmed in all Vedic literatures. The Bhagavad Gita says that a little advancement in Bhakti Rasa can save the devotee from the greatest danger, and that of missing the opportunity to be a human being in the next life. The rasas derived from our feelings in social life, in family life, or in the greater family life of altruism, philanthropy, nationalism, socialism, communism, etc., do not guarantee that one's next life will be as a human being. We prepare our next life by our actual activities in the present life. A living entity is offered a particular type of body as a result of his action in the present body. These activities are taken into account by superior authority known as Deva, or the authority of God. This Deva is explained in the Bhagavad Gita as the prime cause of everything, and in Srimad Bhagavatam it is stated that a man takes his next body by Deva Netran, which means the supervision of authority of the Supreme. In an ordinary sense, Deva is explained as destiny. Deva supervision gives us a body selected from 84 lakh forms. The choice does not depend on our selection but is awarded to us according to our destiny. If our body at present is engaged in the activity of Krishna consciousness, then it is guaranteed that we will have at least a human body in our next life. A human being engaged in Krishna consciousness, even if unable to complete the course of Bhakti Yoga, takes birth in the higher division of human society so that he can automatically further his advancement in Krishna consciousness. Therefore, all bona fide activities in Krishna consciousness are Amrita or permanent. This is the subject matter of the nectar of devotion. Yes, so moving to the next chapter. Benefits of Bhakti. This eternal engagement in Bhakti Rasa can be understood by a serious student upon studying the nectar of devotion. Adoption of the Bhakti Rasa or Krishna consciousness will immediately bring one to the auspicious life free from anxieties and will bless one with transcendental existence, thus minimizing the value of liberation. Bhakti Rasa itself is sufficient to produce a feeling of liberation because it attracts the attention of the Supreme Lord Krishna. Generally, neophyte devotees are anxious to see Krishna or God, but God cannot be seen or known by our present materially blunt senses. The process of devotional service, as it is recommended in the nectar of devotion, will gradually elevate one from the material condition of life to the spiritual status wherein the devotee becomes purified of all designations. The senses can then become uncontaminated, being constantly in touch with Bhakti Rasa. When the purified senses are employed in the service of the Lord, one becomes situated in Bhakti Rasa life, and any action performed for the satisfaction of Krishna in the transcendental Bhakti Rasa stage of life can be realized perpetually. When one is thus engaged in devotional service, all variety of rasas or mellows run into eternity. In the beginning, one is trained according to the principle of regulation under the guidance of Acharya or spiritual master, and gradually, when one is elevated, devotional service becomes automatic and spontaneous eagerness to serve Krishna. There are 12 kinds of rasas which are explained in the nectar of devotion, and by renovating our relationship with Krishna and 5 primary rasas, we can live eternally in full knowledge and bliss. The basic principle of living condition is that we have a general propensity to love someone. No one can live without loving someone else. This propensity is present in every living being. Even an animal like a tiger has a loving propensity, at least in a dormant stage, and it is certainly present in the human beings. The missing point, however, is where to respond our love so that everyone can become happy. At present moment, the human society teaches one to love his country or family or his personal self, but there is no information where to respond the loving propensity so that everyone can become happy. That missing point is Krishna. The nectar of devotion teaches us how to stimulate our original love for Krishna and how to be situated in that position where we can enjoy our blissful life. In the primary stage, a child loves his parents, then his brothers and sisters, and as he daily grows up, he begins to love his family, society, community, country, nation, or even the whole human society. But the loving propensity is not satisfied even by loving all human society. That loving propensity remains imperfectly fulfilled until we know who is the supreme beloved. Our love can fully satisfied only when it is reposed in Krishna. This theme is the sum and substance of the nectar of devotion, which teaches us how to love Krishna in 5 different transcendental values. Okay, so we will stop here. That's all for the day. Vanchakal patru bhestakal pasindu evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Jagadur Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you for joining. Hare Krishna.